Okay, this is a short mini lesson on a rhetorical strategy that is actually a logical fallacy called absolutes. And the bulk of this lesson was created by Brianna, Haley, and Serena, and they did a great job with it. And this should be helpful for you in understanding what absolutes are and how to spot them and talk about them. So, absolutes are actually a logical fallacy, which means a trick in logic. They're definitely a trick that an author or speaker plays on their audience to try to get them to accept their idea. The official definition of absolutes is a statement that is so strong that it does not consider the possibility of disagreement. A totalizing statement, which usually results in a fallacy. They often use words like never, must, or even don't. When you see those words, that should be a clue to you that something is going on here. This could be an absolute, okay? Another way of saying this is saying something in a way that it is hard to argue against, or that the opposite statement appears completely untrue, even if the opposite side is actually kind of reasonable. Whenever we start using those words like never and must or don't, we're probably using an absolute. So again, the keys to spotting an absolute would be to look for words like never, must, or don't. Those are going to be big hints in helping you find these absolutes. And like we said, it's important to remember that this type of strategy is also called a logical fallacy. And that just means a mind trick or a trick in logical thinking that an author uses on his or her audience. One of the things you're asked to do in something like a rhetorical analysis is to actually then discuss why an author would use absolutes or what the purpose of using these strategies are. So this should be a little helpful. Why absolutes are used are to create an indisputable tone. It makes the reader feel like they'd be crazy to disagree. That's a way you could talk about the purpose of the use of absolutes that would make sense. If you're saying something must be true, it makes it really hard for someone arguing against you to find middle ground with you, right? You're saying like it's my way or the highway. So some examples of absolutes that some students generated are these here, right? We must compromise our comfortable way of life in America or it will lead to our destruction. Just by the use of that word must there, it lets us know that we're working with absolutes here. How about this one? We must never break the law to preserve order in our nation. Or maybe you've heard this one before. Never wear white after Labor Day. Once again, notice the use of the words must and never in all of these. That's a good hint that an absolute is in play. So what does it look like to find an absolute in action on a piece of writing or perhaps on an AP test where you're asked to analyze the rhetoric of a piece of writing? Well, maybe something like this. This is actually from the 2008 AP test, and this was the rhetorical analysis question. It was an article about the great influenza, 1918 flu epidemic. We could find out more information about what this passage is about up here, but as you read the passage, one easy way to spot these absolutes would be to, as you're reading, look for the use of those words like must and never. So take a second, pause the screen, read through this article, and see if you can spot where an absolute is being used. Did you spot it? You should have focused in here to this third paragraph, and if you look closely, we can really quickly identify an absolute being used. Hopefully you zeroed in on this part where it says a scientist must accept the fact that all his or her work, even beliefs, may break apart upon the sharp edge of a single laboratory finding. The use of this absolute here makes it harder for us to argue against the point that the author is making. And that's how absolutes work. You can spot them all the time. So next time you're reading a piece of writing or a speech or something like that, be on the lookout for absolutes.